My background is a nomad. This is why the technology usually defeats me. Thank you very much, Professor Goodman. I thank you for this opportunity. I also thank the president, the student, and have this chance of really share with you some of the information and also the concerns that I have now that the world in which we are living has become a village, as many people say. So, I mean, you cannot have, Sudan in wars and people are dying there without being affected, or just shut the, and say, okay, this is very far from my neighborhood. In fact, before I start preparing this, I was thinking of, what kind of things that I should say today. And then the first thing that came to my mind is the fact that why the world has failed, to prevent war crimes and genocide. Why? And then I thought maybe I should talk with the students and the president today about, how can we really, there are a lot of signals and signs, especially in my country, Sudan, that anyone around could tell that a war crime is going to happen tomorrow. But no, there is no mechanism in place. There is no monitoring system in place that can really tell us that given these signs, given these indicators, we have a serious situation here, and we have to have a response mechanism that can immediately respond to that. Sudan is really a case in point, as far as there have been huge signs, whether it in fact, for everybody who's visiting Sudan at any point of time in its history, could tell that this country is sitting on a time bomb. And I'm going to talk, in fact, about the wars of Sudan. By the way, we have 50 years of civil war. This is between the so-called dichotomy of North-South wars. And then I will come to talk about the current wars, which are also launched by this current regime. And you bear with me as this is the location of Sudan, in fact, as you can see, it's in the heart of Africa. And Egypt, Libya, Chad. So I'm going to share with you the big picture. Let me give you background about, the context in which we are talking, especially the historical one, the emergence of Sudan as a nation state and the important historical events. Sudan, just like any other African country, we went through this Anglo-Egyptian occupation, and that's when we have something called the nation state, which is the current border. And as you all know, by the time the colonial regime left, there were arbitrary borders that didn't take into consideration, in fact, either the tribal ethnic groups, boundaries. So you will find, this is in fact an important aspect that I want to bring to your attention, that the nation state in Africa is a state in the making. That is not like in Europe or America that you have. So this is a fact that will affect, in fact, how the state as a central authority dealt with its other parts. In 1916, Darfur itself was a sultanate, independent of the rest of the country. It was only annexed by the British in 1916, not for any economic reasons, maybe security reasons, but this is why, I mean, if the Sudan government, the central power, claimed that Darfur is part of Sudan by force to subjugate it, then we can say, well, that's not really the case, because until 1916, Darfur was an independent state. The Sudan declared independence in 1956, but before the independence, in fact, we have civil war in 1955, which brought mutiny in the southern Sudan, because the southern Sudanese were not satisfied when the independence came. They were not, in fact, part of the negotiation, or they were not consulted, and they were taken for granted that they are part of the nation state that we talked about. So the Anyanya, which is the first group that revolted against the central government in Khartoum from the south, calling for separation, in fact, 1955, even before the independence officially declared. The second civil war, I mean, this war ended in 1972 by Addis Ababa Agreement. Again, you know, the central government never honored, and this has been the norm, in fact, as far as our central government is concerned. They always go for agreements. They come to the international community, they say, okay, we conclude an agreement, peace comes, and this is the conditions, but they never implement these agreements. So too many agreements dishonor in this. The second civil war, in fact, began in 1983, because after 17 years, in 1972, this agreement lasted only for 10 years after that, because the central government in Khartoum did not respect the fact, I mean, what came in the agreement that gives the southern Sudan some sort of autonomy. And then after 2 or 3 years, they came back and they want to bring the south again under, you know, the control of the central government, central authority. This is why, in fact, in 1983, the southerners took the gun again to fight. This time, the Sudan People Liberation Movement, they said, we want to liberate the whole Sudan, in fact, rather than, and we are calling for a new Sudan that will respect diversity in religion, in ethnicity, in all this. And this agreement ended by Nivasha, and agreement in 2005. And Nivasha agreement, we call it the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, CPA. It is very important agreement, which, in fact, stipulate that the southern Sudan will have referendum and have the right to decide to go to secede from the rest of the country. That's one thing. However, the agreement again gave us an opportunity, gave the central Sudan an opportunity. They said, however, if the central government make the unity attractive, then we give them 6 years to prove to the southerners that they are serious about considering the grievances of the south and respect their will and make the unity attractive to them. But in fact, during these 6 years, the government of Sudan, or the authority in Khartoum and its supporters, did just the opposite. To the extent that the southerners, when it comes to, when the day of the referendum comes, everybody knows very well that the South will opt for secession. And 2000, in fact, January 2011, under the pressure of the international community, the government of Sudan gave in, and the referendum was conducted in January 2011, and 99% of the Southerners decided that, no, we don't want to be part of this country. And it's very painful for a Sudanese like myself to see that when you come, I was in a bus from my house. I teach at the Defense Language Institute. And in that bus, when I looked around me, there were Asians, there were Africans, there were people of all walks of life. And I said, why? Why this country can simply accommodate all of us? And we all greet each other in the morning and smile at each other. Why don't we do that in our country? So, I mean, for me, the Southerners are brothers. I mean, especially myself, I came from Southern Kordofan, border with the border with the north. I myself, I went to school with them a lot. When I was presenting with Professor Gouumaa, a tall, young, handsome chap approached me, and I was talking about Abiy and how the government of Sudan invaded that and kicked 100,000 people out of their homes. His father, who happened to be the Minister of Foreign Cooperation in Southern Sudan, we went to school together and we were very close friends. And when I was talking about Abiy with all this enthusiasm and all that, and when we finished, this young tall boy approached me and said, "Uncle, where are you from?" "I'm a Sudanese." I said, "Are you?" And then I figured out immediately, because I know that Dengalar has his family here, and I was so touched by that. And you can imagine, you know, the people at the grassroots, how the relationship is reflecting this human and you know, very emotional thing. And I was almost crying, you know, when this young chap approached me and I said, "You are the son of Dengalar, huh?" And then he talked to his dad in Juba and told him I came across a guy who was talking about what's going on in Abiy. However, this is us at the grassroots, can you imagine? Just to give you some figures, and these figures were said, in fact, recently by the Secretary General of Sudan People Liberation Movement. And by the way, I mean, if I have time, I'll tell you also, the Sudan People Liberation Movement, which is initially a southern movement, but we joined it. There are a lot of people from northern Sudan, educated intellectuals, who really look for a good country, you know, that can tolerate and accommodate all of us. We joined this movement. And we said, yes, we need a new Sudan, a Sudan that can, you know, can accept all of us and accommodate us regardless of our differences. And this is why now the Secretary General, after the Southern Sudan separated, the rest of us who was once part of the Sudan People Liberation Movement, which is originally a southern movement, which including a lot of people from the so-called northern Sudan like myself. Now the Secretary General, we still maintain the SPLM North, we call it. And we still have the Secretary General of the, who talked to us through the phone in California here the other day. And he gave me these figures. I told him I'm going to, we were discussing, and he said, can you imagine, because our government today, they are saying that, oh, Southern Sudan went on its own, and now we have pure North for us. So nobody talk to us like the international community about. And Omar al-Bashir, the president, said it himself. He said, nobody should talk to us from now on about diversity. No one should talk to us. Now we are the North, Muslim Arab country, And, and then, when I was talking to the Secretary General, he told me, do you know that there are 570 ethnic groups in Sudan? And by the way, you can Google that and you can, it is documented. Out of these, 37 ethnic groups are in the south. So that means the northern Sudan are even more diverse than the south. You see, and most of these ethnic groups, however, extend beyond the national borders. I myself now, if I went to Chad, I would go straight to my tribe. Straight to my tribe from Sudan. And nobody in Chad will tell me that you are a Sudanese, you are not Chadian. Nobody takes that into consideration. So this fact also will show you that these wars can spill over easy. And you can, if you fight my tribe here, my tribe can call for the other tribe from the other border. And you can see how these things link together, you know. If one area, you know, caught fire, then the rest of the region is on fire. And I'm going to show you also this. They speak, the Sudanese, however, they speak 130 languages. And when I say language, I mean language. It's not dialect. 130 languages. Can you imagine such a country to govern it centrally in Khartoum and impose on them, you know, one identity and don't benefit from this diversity? I mean, people may say, well, I mean, but I'm not an elite who's really power hunger, that I want to go to Sudan and become a minister, or that if I wish that, the shortest way is to go to the current government and tell them I'm happy with you. Yeah. We are saying what we are saying to you because we don't want, because Darfur is still bleeding, by the way. We don't want this to happen again and again. And I will share with you also indicators and signals, even in our neighbors, that if we don't move, there is a lot of catastrophes coming. So we speak 130 languages, including 4. The 4, I mean, Yasser Arman, the Secretary General, was telling me, do you know that the 4 is even more ancient than the English and French? And the Nubian. Yeah. So this is the country now that the central pillars want to. And then we have Islam, we have Christianity, we have other indigenous beliefs. In fact, the Dinka tribe, they are so proud of their culture, to the extent that they call their God the God of the people. Yeah? Is Tongnas. Nas means people in Arab. And the Dinka, they call their God, you know, the God of the people. So can you tell these people that, you know, yeah, you have to leave your God of the people and come to our God? You can't. This is what is happening in Sudan. And let's go to the social culture. As we said, there are many cross-border ethnic groups and tribes which live in either side of the international border, like the Zakawa. You know, by the way, the president of Chad, got married recently, and the party was in Khartoum. Married to whom? Married to the daughter of Musa Hilal. And Musa Hilal is said to be the head of the Janjaweed. Yeah? The infamous Janjaweed. And he's from the Zegat tribe. The marriage took place recently, by the way, and was attended by this African Union guy who's supposed to head the UNAMID, which is the peacekeeping mission. The head of the peacekeeping mission was in the party in Khartoum, which an outcry. Most of people like ourselves, we say this is foul. You know, how can a UN representative, you know, come to this such an occasion? Anyway, Zakawa, Mohammed, Misiria, like myself, there are also strong ties in terms of livelihood. You know, there are nomads here and nomads across the board. So their livelihood, and similarly, by the way, in Rwanda and Uganda, the Democratic Republic of Congo, there are tribes which go to and fro across the border. The wars over resources have historically existed between these groups, and this is very important aspect, by the way, because as this mechanized, and Sudan is a case in point, as the mechanized farms introduced in Sudan, they destroyed a lot of lands, and you know, the desertification and soil erosion took place, and then because of that, the shrinking resources, there is always a competition, historically competition over these resources. As these resources shrink, the competition and the conflict over resources become even more harder. So the government in Khartoum see that, there is an opportunity here for divide and rule. So you see how the shrinking resources create the environment for the elites in the central government to use these differences and, widen the difference and deepen also the differences between this group and make the conflict even more stronger to deal with. Am I okay as far as time is concerned? Okay. Also, women. And of course, among those tribes, especially these border tribes in South Darfur and all this, for them, the honor of although they are marginalized in a way, in terms of status, a woman cannot become the sheikh of the tribe, but the women have also a strong role in two ways. One way is that the honor of the tribe is vested in women. This is very dangerous because women become a target of war. Because if you want to humiliate this tribe, you target the women. Of course, not to mention that men are always in the war, and then women and children and elders are the most affected by such wars. Another, in fact, power of the woman is that I was telling Professor Gouumaa about the role of the Hakama. And the Hakama is a singer. She's a lady who makes poetry and sing, praise the men who are courageous and generous. And they are the only ones who keep men fighting. To the extent that they even praise the men to go and rape the other tribe, women and all that. But people were thinking if we could reverse that power of women and make them sing for peace and tolerance and condemn the wars and war crimes. I read once that one of the Hakamas, when she was asked by these development people like myself, if you could really sing for peace. She said they always pay me to sing for war, but they never pay me to sing for peace. And this is also one thing that we should also take into consideration. Little things like this. By the way, the role of women can be really very influential and to turn the ties towards the peaceful coexistence. Let's go to the geopolitical, and I'm also going quickly over that because I want to hover with you to see the big picture. Because Sudan is not living alone. Sudan, by the way, before it is split into two states, on the 9th of July, that's when the Southern Sudan became independent. Sudan was bordering 9 countries: Libya, Chad, Democratic Republic of Congo, CAD, Central African Republic, Egypt. And in most of these African countries, you have similar situation exist in Sudan. Non-state armed groups are everywhere. They are in hundreds. poverty is rampant. Disease, non-presence of, the government, by the way, most of this government are almost, you can call them failed government. Government of Khartoum, this is why the government resolved to recruiting militia, insurgency on hit, so that they can fight on their behalf. But their presence to provide peace and security in these places does not exist. There was no government. There is this Lord Assistant Army moved from Uganda through Kar, through Central Africa Republic, to the Southern Sudan, to Darfur. So you can imagine. I don't know what to hit here. And, I want to show you the African. Can you hit the Africa political map again, so that we see this? Yeah, and you see these are the countries, Chad and Libya. In fact, the Sudanese government revealed that they helped the Libyan Muslim brothers who were fighting Gaddafi. The line of supplies comes through Sudan, and this is said by the president of Sudan himself. So as you can see, these borders, again talking about nation state, hey, you better study this nation state in Africa carefully to know whether what is required, what should it take to have a nation state? How can the world help us make a nation state? Okay. The population of this region estimated at 400. I did my homework, and I went to CIA fact book and the State Department. I collected all the population number, and I found out that they have come very close to 400 million. People live in this, a time bomb, region. Poverty, disease, wars, conflict, absence of government, insecurity, name. Can you imagine what will happen to this world if this barrel of gun? The region is characterized by prevalence of poverty, uneven development, coupled by lack of basic health and other services. And then the elite in this region now increasingly began to look for the central government and say, oh, we want our share, like in Darfur, like in other places. So when people ask how this happened, it is this kind of understanding that I'm trying that if we have this understanding, then we can make an informed strategies as to what we can do as an international community to prevent this from happening or moving forward to a catastrophe. This is Northern Sudan. Of course, this is okay. This is Northern Sudan, and you can see in the Sudan, the South Sudan clear is here now. So the Sudan now, South Sudan now is bordering. See this car? Please look at it very carefully. This is Central African Republic. This place is really infested by all kinds of criminals that can cross your mind. There is no any rule in that. And these borders, both Darfur, here, Sudan, and also borders Southern Sudan. And this is the Lord Resistance Army of Uganda also is operating here, and now the United States is following them, try to help bring them down. DRC. But Abyei, this is where myself and my friend Dengalora, I just talked to you about his son. We belong, both of us belong here. This is the place which was invaded by the government of Sudan. There is another story, I'll come to it later on if we have time. But again, continue on the geopolitical aspects. The international border between North and South is 50% of the international border of the South with the rest of the countries, yeah? So this is again Yasser Arman, the Secretary General of the SPLM, in a conversation with him, that the overall borders of the southern Sudan, the new state, is 4,300 kilometers, but 2015 kilometers, representing the can I go back with this? No. Yeah. Along this border belt lives around 9 million people. I wish I could. Can you remember the map, the south border with the north? Along those borders, these are all nomadic tribes whose livelihood depends entirely on crossing the border to the south, including my own tribe, by the way. 9 million. So for them, crossing the border to south is not a matter of choice, it's a matter of necessity. Related to that existence of cross-border non-state armed groups, we mentioned that it follows that recruiting mercenaries and counterinsurgency is cheap. Yeah? And now with China, putting a lot of small arms and ammunition in that area, the gun, the AK-47 there, it cost, somebody told me, between $20 and $30. And you can imagine, with this proliferation of small arms all over the place, all you need to do is, again, somebody told me, if you have a Land Cruiser, 12 armed men, and you have this phone, there is a certain type of satellite phone. That can communicate. Usually, the leaders of the armed groups, they own this so that they can talk to the whole world, and nowadays to the media and all that. So if you have 12 fighters, you have a Land Cruiser and this type of communication thing, you are a movement enough. Yeah, you are a movement enough. To the extent, by the way, that people, this is also the role of the technology, to the extent that the people, I would call your group, we say, hey, we want to attack. You come with your unit, your 12 group, and we can make an army in no time. And then for whoever will pay us more, we will hit the target. So recruiting mercenaries, even Gaddafi, in fact, by the time these people revolt against Gaddafi literally didn't have army. He did not have army. He has only these mercenaries from Africa, and that from the Tawarik and all that, making use of this, cross-border ethnic thing. And imagining such place. So I think the world has no reason to wonder, why things are happening in Darfur like that? Why things are happening in Sudan like that? I mean, if this is the situation, and we know it, do something about it. In Central African Republic, for example, these days, this is a very, February 12, UN Daily News, okay? I quoted it as 1.9 million affected by conflict for the next 12 months. This is CAR, Central Africa. You can imagine. Okay, now the old and new wars, the estimated number of deaths is 2 million and 4 million internally displaced during the wars in southern Sudan, by the way. In total, I'm going to pass quickly through this if I don't have time. The total number of deaths in south is 2 million. If you add to it Darfur 300,000, okay? And if you bring together all the death toll of all these wars, we make like very close to 3 million, okay? And this is regardless, I mean, we are talking about also, this is, by the way, the picture of a school, which was a school building destroyed by the Sudan army. And it's the same bombardment. They use the Antonov, they call it dirty bombs. They fill the barrel with all kinds of debris, and then they throw it from, because the Antonov is a cargo plane. It is not a fighter. So what you do is you lit the barrel, this dirty bombs, they are man-made, you know, and then you throw it in the villages, falls from up. That terrorizes the villages. All this fires on the villages and all that, it's because of this Antonov thing. And they are still using Antonov in the Gouumaa mountain. This is a Christian school, by the way, which was recently hit in, this is on the 3rd of February 2012, and it's done by Ryan Baird. And this is the, you can go to it in the internet. This is also the Sudan. But I want to tell you, this is the west here, this is Darfur. And you can see Darfur is a country, it's bigger than France. And this is the southern Kordofan, northern Kordofan. And this is the Blue Nile. And you can see the borders. This is the borders between the north and south, and this is a view. You see, this is the border. And you can see, you know, that 9 million people along this border from Darfur here, South Darfur, which is the Arab nomadic tribes. These are cattle rearers, including my tribe here. They have to cross these borders into the south. I don't know. We now stand off between because the north, they started stealing the oil from the pipeline, the oil from the south, because 75% of the oil is now produced in the south. And the northern Sudan left with nothing. So what they did, they asked for, if you want to use the pipeline, you have to pay $32 per barrel. And then I hear the president of Southern Sudan, they said, if the price of the barrel is $50, and then the Northern Sudan, who's not producing the oil, will take 32, and then we left with 18. Why do we have to produce the oil in our place? So this is, and now people expect that if there is a war between the South and North bloc in this place, one of the things that we should resolve is to settle this border issue. I'll have to move quickly. The war in Darfur, we talked about the deaths. Yeah, wars always accompanied by the recent wars, which started, there are 3 wars. They invaded Abyei area, which I just showed it to you. And now 100,000 of the population of Abyei, they went across the border into the south. And they are either refugees or internally displaced, but their homes now is occupied by military. And the UN is there. The UN military is there. The peacekeeping, the so-called peacekeeping is still in, and there is still the international community until this very moment, they are struggling to bring the Ngok Denka back to their homes. It's still this very moment I'm talking to you. Also, the government in Southern Sudan, in June 2011, the government attacked the SPLM in southern, they want to disarm them, and the war broke in the Gouumaa mountain. The Gouumaa also is a very distinct ethnic group who are Christian, Muslim, and also they have their indigenous beliefs. They are now attacking them. But thank God, the terrain of the area is composed of 99 mountains. So the Nuba, when the Antonov, not similar to Darfur, the Nuba, God bless them because they have the mountains. So when the Antonov comes, they will run to the caves and put the children in the caves. And I'm going to show you the picture. Okay. Yeah, they invaded 100,000. You will find all this information here. I don't want. Well, in fact, at this very moment, the estimated, they use similar tactics of aerial bombardment, just Russian Antonov, just like the way they did it. There is a striking similarities between Darfur and southern Kordofan now. 417, by the way, internally displaced people, 150,000 of them refugees in South Sudan and 38,000 in Ethiopia. And you can go to any UN website. In fact, this numbers is in very recent UN release. They refer to the internally displaced people. Recently, this is February, that much. How are we doing? Okay. These are the children under the children in the Nuba Mountains taking cover from the airplane shelling. This I put also the website here for you. These are the children. They would send their children. I mean, Darfur doesn't enjoy this. And if you see this is very recent. Destruction of a civilian village in Nuba Mountain. If you see this, you will imagine that if you see any of the pictures in Darfur, you will say that this is in Darfur. Now you cannot tell, whether this is in Darfur or the Blue Nile or the Nuba Mountain or any other places in there. The African Union, the role of and the UN put in Darfur the so-called UNAMID, which is a hybrid peacekeeping force, composed of Africans and Europeans and all that, but still the war is going on, and despite Qatar and Doha and all this, the government never honor this. There is Abuja and all that, all this, too many agreements dishonor. But international response has been far more less in our countries, in Africa, than in other places, with loud outcry in Libya, Syria, and Yemen, and all that. Yeah? And now if we look, this, I quoted this, Egypt, death toll was, until, the United States began to show its concern and voice its concern clearly, the toll death was 1,000. Yemen at that time was 1,000. Syria, by the time Syrians death toll was 5,000, the whole world will stand on its feet. And they said, stop, you are killing you. And Chapter 7, the UN applied in the case of Libya and these places. In the case of Africa, nobody seemed to really. But if Africa is, the central parallel of power, I would conclude, in Khartoum has never been serious about peace and bringing about democratic and viable nation state called Sudan. That's, at 50-something years old, at this age, I come to conviction that the central power in Khartoum are not serious of building a nation state that can accommodate all of us, regardless of our religion, our ethnic, our culture, No, I gave up. Too many agreements and counterinsurgency on cheap. These are some of the things I want you to take. And by the way, you read Alex Duval, my friend, who's really specialized in, he wrote his first book called Darfur 1984. Darfur was hit by serious famine And Alex Duval did his PhD on that for, and he wrote his book, The Famine That Kills. The pure Arab Muslim state, they think it is viable, I think it's not. And here are some of the recommendations. I have a very simple recommendation that end all attacks in Sudan that violate international humanitarian law. Pressure the government in Sudan to allow for the international humanitarian assistance to reach the refugees and internally displaced people. And the international community should push for stopping the current wars and make it imperative for the warring parties to come to the negotiation table. And related to the above, any future peace making should be based on previous agreement dishonored by the government in Khartoum. And I think I have shared with you enough signs and signals. What we need is from such institutions, and I would call on the Holocaust Center, which I see, even with your presence, the interest in the eyes of the student and everybody around here to understand what's going on. And I think you are the most capable generation of bringing this out clear to the world and say, look, we have to do something here. Unless you address the poverty, unless you address these things. And we make alliances with the elites who are manipulating the whole thing for their own power and corruption. If the international community could not go, then Holocaust went without the world conscious until the people lost their life in this horrible, horrible way. By the way, they are teaching. When school was caught teaching, you see humanity? When school was caught teaching Holocaust in Sudan, in one of the high schools, and then the whole, the elite in Khartoum, they started saying, oh, how dare they do that? But when you come to the people, this is why, please target the people. When you come to the people, they feel the pain of others. They want to talk about the Holocaust in Sudan. I have seen with myself, Senegal, in the center of Khartoum. I came from southern Kordofan where this war is going. And then while walking in Khartoum, I came across this temple, and they said, this is a Jewish temple. I said, wow. So this is the way we used to be, and I think I should thank you very much for being so patient to listen to my story, and I should stop here. Yes. Okay, the difference between, thank God, because I work for the UNHCR. The refugee is the person who crossed the border for fear of persecution. And UNHCR, until recently, they deal only with the refugees. But they found that people who run havoc, but within the border of their own country, but not in their home, they call them internally displaced people. So that's the difference between the two. Internally displaced people. Yeah. But now equally the UNHCR is paying attention and is supposed to help these internally displaced people as equally as the refugees. If you don't ask me, I'll ask you. Yes, sir.
So why do you think there's been so much more attention in what's happened in the Arab world than in Southern Black Africa?
We are puzzled. I wouldn't really, dare to, volunteer with. But there are, of course, it is just legitimate to think that probably because of the strategic, both in terms of economic and in terms of security of the Middle East vis-a-vis Africa, yeah, and also the location of Middle East close to Europe and all these places, and it seems Africa is quite remote, but these are all, hypotheses. But there are very strong ones. I believe this is what behind, you know. Yes.
What's the level of education in the country?
Please talk louder.
What's the level of education?
Oh, the level of education. Well, I'll just take a sample of my own tribe. I mean, I'm among the generation who were lucky because at that time they were boarding schools, like the British boarding schools. So our parents would put us in the boarding school. First of all, you have 2 or 3 of your children will eat and live there and care for, and you go with your cattle to the south. Nowadays, the government is not providing it. So, I mean, people are talking about 80% illiteracy in that. This is, leave alone, I mean, these people are also unemployed. So their only way of livelihood is the gun, AK-47. I have young, very, very young relatives, like 14 years who are my cousins. So they told me that, I mean, these boys are now, they are on the back of the horses. And by the way, today, things have evolved. The last fight between my tribe and another tribe was on a motorbike, just like a film of Hollywood. People were fighting on motorbikes. The motorbikes reached thus far, and they were guns in their hands, and they're killing 200 killed between Thursday and Friday, between Awlad Surur and it's also, if you go for that, you will find it.
Would you explain to the students what the Antonov is?
Oh,
I don't think they know.
Antonov is from the name is a cargo plane. When we were during the Cold War, the Sudan, you know, came through a socialist government, military government, and all that. So they used to import the military equipment from Russia, and this Antonov is cargo plane to carry the supplies for the military. And they are using this because it is not a plane that is designated to fight. It's a plane that's designated to carry supplies. So they will make their own bomb in a barrel with debris and all that, and they will lit and they will roll the barrel from the plane to 4 floor up into the pit. It is so terrorizing. It's not well targeted, but they will just. Yes.
Is Southern Sudan looking to export their oil through another border?
Yes, yes.
Friends with Kenya?
Yes, with Kenya, yeah. They are now considering, you know, building their own pipeline through Kenya or also through Ethiopia to Djibouti. So they are, and you can see, you know, the damage that will happen to the so diverse northern Sudan. Yes.
You said there was people preventing humanitarian aid. How much humanitarian aid actually gets into the people who are, you know, affected by these events?
Okay, especially this is a very good question, especially in southern Kordofan, now where the new war, southern Kordofan and the Blue Nile, the government said no, no, no. Either we take the no access of any international NGO to provide humanitarian. Still, there is statements, if you go by the way to the internet, there is statements recently by the UN representative in the UN Security Council, and also by the UN Security Council itself, calling for the government of Sudan to allow the international community. Because this March, they are saying, all the NGOs, the indicators are that there is going to be very serious famine, and people will die in the Blue Nile and southern Kordofan. There is no kidding. Go to the internet and write war in southern Kordofan and Blue Nile, and you will find all this information.
How are the borders drawn?
Oh, yeah, the borders, well, the 1956, the British borders, but there are still disputed areas. The borders is basically based on the borders 1956.
Okay.
Yeah, the British border. But Abyei, which is in fact a small area annexed to the northern Sudan by the British for administrative things. But the population, the Nugogo Dinka themselves, they are Southerners. But now they want to go to South because they fought the war with the rest of the South. And when the South get independent, they got stuck in the North. They said, yeah, what are we? You know, but we want to be South. And the government said, no, no South. And then the court of arbitration and their demarcation, but it still is one of the very flash points and very serious. The Nugok Dinka are now not living in their homes. And it is a very oil-rich area, by the way. And my tribe also goes through this, you know, where we don't know what to do now, especially during the dry season. The nomads, all these 9 million, they have to cross to south. What the international community is going to do.
So, what I'd like to ask, it's just something that I'm thinking that, you know, we've learned in Rwanda and other places, the colonial past has contributed a great deal to the unrest in the continent, in Africa. And all of the countries were divided up according to Western ideas and negotiations, etc. And it would seem to me that Sudan should be more than South Sudan and North Sudan, that it really logically should be split into.
Oh yeah, look at Darfur. Until 1916, it was a sultanate, you know, Darfur. It has its trade and foreign. By the way, Darfur, the Sultan of Darfur used to donate for the Kaaba in Mecca to close the Kaaba because they said very ornamental things, and it used to be very rich sultanate, and they used to help the Saudi, and they decorate the Kaaba and all that. So they have trade with Egypt, with North Africa and across. So also the Bija in the eastern Sudan, where kingdom, they have their own language, and yeah, Sudan can literally, you know, split it into many countries.
Are there many natural resources besides oil?
Yeah. Sudan used to be called, you know, the world food basket, and in fact, you have all this from the desert in the north. The River Nile, of course, goes there. So the irrigation, the land irrigated along the River Nile, where you have the Nubians and all that. And then as you go down, you have the rich savanna, where you have these nomads. My tribe has 10 million heads. And I went to Holland, and I was reading, there I went to a conference, and I was reading, and I said, there is 4 million cattle in Holland. And I say, oh my God, my tribe has even more, double the cattle in Holland. Yeah? So we are very rich. Eritrea, I think 1989, we were driving literally on mango. Nobody is picking it from the ground. And that's how rich in resource the country is. Even Umar al-Bashir himself, he said, because we found the oil, we forget about the other natural resources. And now Sudan is in really very different situation.
Has there been any impact in Darfur as a result of the separation of Sudan from South Sudan? Or is it too early to say?
No, I think there is an impact. In fact, recently, Khalil of one of these Darfur organizations, this is called Justice and Equality Movement, Jim, was killed along the border. In addition to that, it's still, they're debated like Hufrat al-Nahas, is if I translated it, it will be like the whole of Nahas is copper, yeah? It's very famous with mineral resources. This is debated between Darfur and the south. It's one of the areas at the border. In addition to that, Darfur has a lot to do with, with the south, because it has border also with the south and with Kar. Now we have this new front, they call it the Revolution Front, which brought together for the first time. You remember we all talk about, the Darfur organizations, split it into too many. Nowadays they come together, especially the major ones, like the Sudan People Liberation Army, and together with the Sudan People Liberation Movement, which was once fought with the Southern Sudan, which our friend, the Secretary General, belongs to, and they come together and they created what they call now Revolutionary Front. But I want to tell you, now the government in Sudan is saying that, well, this non-Arab, this Nuba, and now they are allied together with Darfurian and all that, they are going to invade the north, and they are going to kill you all, and they are going to rape your women. And now we are working very hard to turn this propaganda around. And this is very dangerous, these days, because nowadays people are talking about, if these people marginalized, they are calling them the marginalized people, if they come from all these peripheries of the country with their guns to the north, then the government of Sudan is propagating that you, the northerners, forget about it. You will be slaughtered. And that even make it worse. Yes?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I want to have a better understanding of genocide. Is it still the government committing genocide against Darfur? Or now that it's split, I guess I don't understand completely where it's occurring, and with all these different ethnic groups, who's being targeted?
Well, in that area, in fact, there is a fine line, but as far as definitions goes, between what you can call it genocide or war crimes, because even the ideology of the tribes is one of eliminating each other. I mean, if that's possible. And also, there is this thing during the war in Darfur. The rape was not only to humiliate, but also to change the race. So that's one aspect of it. But in such high emotion, such divisions, if the elite enters, well, regardless of the definition, you may have really a war crime right there. And it has a lot to do with characterizing, profiling, kill them, the slave, son of a slave, kill them, yeah? So these things, which in fact it hints that there is an intended, the intention is there. And even Umar al-Bashir was quoted as saying, and I'm quoting his big boss, Hassan al-Turabi, and he said among his friends, he said, do you think that if somebody from Jali in his tribe raped a Darfurian, okay, is that an honor or a crime? And you can judge for yourself. And I'm quoting him. By the way, you can go to anyone speaking Arabic, right? Turabi and Bashir. The Turabi is Hassan al-Turabi is famous. He's the leader of the Islamic Front in Sudan. And he was telling the people in a public lecture like this, that this is what he heard from an inner circle of Umar al-Bashir. And you can see. So I have very strong indicators that there is motives for genocide. But I'm not really for what I see. The killing is going on, the deaths of different reasons, whether these reasons are negligence of the people to die without health services. My father died of malaria. And when I attended one conference talking about the AIDS in Africa and how AIDS, people discriminate against those who are suspected of having AIDS when it comes to distributing like microcredit. At that time, NGOs, the people would say, no, 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 don't give him credit because he will die without paying the loan. And I told them, you know, in my country where I was running in the Eastern Sudan microcredit program, the people will die of malaria more than the people die of AIDS. And then they said, this guy came from Sudan, this guy must be Muslim brother. So it's for me, I mean, my concern is the death, this death. And the death is not, I'm not talking theoretically, it's the death that comes to it's knocking on my door, you know. I picked the phone one day and my brother was crying. And he said, my mother is dying. It's the malaria. And my mother was brought from my place there to Khartoum because there is no medicine there. And you can see, you know, how people, you know, the souls there are really. When I travel here up to now, you know, I see that, I say, oh my God, do we really live in the same planet? Are we really the same people that God created us?
Any more questions? So, to sum up, as informed citizens now, you said that we might have some effect.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Okay, first of all, I will call upon this center to, within the Holocaust, to make a chapter or a discipline, research, for example, to inform the world of such realities, you know, that the students can go out on our internet, you know, and do research, okay? So that the center, I hope this center will come out by the outcome of such an exercise is to come to us with some monitoring system. That these are the indicators. This is the monitoring system that you can take, not necessarily that you apply it 100%, but indicative that can tell you, you ring the bell that, well, from what I gathered, this place is dangerous, it's going towards, you know, the minimum is a crime against humanity, if not genocide. So I hope that this will be taken. The other thing, the world is very small. I never thought that I would be standing here, you know, because the person I born with him the same, he's now with his cattle in the struggling to go to the south. I was sick and tired, and I said, I'm lucky that I'm here. So if I can make it to here, if I can have, the education can bring me thus far and make me the son of the world, why can't we, you know, push along those lines, as you asked me? How is the percentage of the education? Now the illiteracy in my tribe is going up to 80%. If these people are educated and these people are rich, I told you about the meat, about the mango, you know, if we can make these people test, you know, because we are busy with war. If you as generation can push that, hey, these people have resources that we all need. Let us eat, you know, mango from the forest of Juba and save the forest here and make the people here more healthy eating organic and make the people back there, back home, you know, more economically well-to-do, and then they will buy. I mean, now the shepherds, after the cattle, they have cell phones. If the cell phone can reach thus far, you know, I think the welfare can reach thus far. Thank you.